Right, welcome ladies and gents. We're here to talk about Rust, because there's been some updates. Now, what am I talking about? Rust. The Rust movie. And of course, the tragedy that befell the cinematographer, Helena Hutchins. Unfortunately, she lost her life where the gun that Alec Baldwin had in his hand went off. Now, there's been some sort of back and forth. This has been going on for way too long. I'll say that from the off. And there's been some back and forth on who's going to get charged what, who's to blame here and there. And one thing which is not up for debate, because those things can be up for debate, one thing which is not up for debate is that Alec Baldwin handled himself appallingly during this entire time. He really did. That crybaby interview that he did, insane, reeked of narcissism, absolute nonsense. And then he thought he got off scot-free. Rewind, the fact that he wasn't working with the authorities to hand his phone over as well. That was a severe issue and a severe lapse of judgment. The PR for Alec Baldwin around this has been atrocious. Awful. Absolutely awful. However, there is a further update. Two updates. Alec Baldwin could still be charged because even though the FBI concluded that the weapon couldn't be fired without the gun, the trigger actually being pulled or the hammer cocking, there's been another confirmation of that. And although the charges were dropped against Alec Baldwin, there's been further confirmation. And Alec Baldwin is trying to axe a suit against him as well. So there's now a trial pushed to 2024. So let's take a look at this. I've been covering this since it happened. And it's just been an ongoing saga. So here's this update. And I covered this on my podcast, actually, which you can find linked down below in the description box. Mistake Reviews Live Archives. So Alec Baldwin could be charged again in Rust case as report finds the trigger was pulled. Now, a few things interesting about this, right? Baldwin denied pulling the trigger. Obviously which proceeded to have Helena Hutchins struck with a live round and then killed. So the special prosecutors on the case, Carrie Morrissey and Jason Lewis, commissioned a new forensic examination of the gun and have been waiting on the results before deciding whether to refile the charges. The report by Lucian and Michael Haig was submitted to them earlier this month and released Thursday in a public court filing. That's last Thursday. So the experts reconstructed the gun, which had apparently been broken by the FBI testing. All right. And concluded that it could only have been fired by a pull of the trigger. This fatal incident was the consequence of the hammer being manually retracted to its fully rearward and cocked position followed. At some point by the pull or rearward depression of the trigger, the report concluded, although Alec Baldwin repeatedly denies pulling the trigger, given the test's findings and observations reported here, the trigger had to be pulled or depressed sufficiently to release the fully cocked or retracted hammer of the evidence revolver. If it is determined that the gun did not malfunction, charges against Mr. Baldwin will proceed. And that was something which was stated in June. So Baldwin hasn't been charged yet. And it remains unclear if he will be, but it's looking likely. But apparently Morrissey said in an email on Thursday they expected that decision to be forthcoming. Basically, they expect an announcement very, very soon. And this is the thing. So you've got Hannah Gutierrez-Reed. She's facing a trial in December. This is the film's armourer. Charges of involuntary manslaughter, evidence tampering. She's maintained for attorneys. Seth Kenney, a weapons supplier, was responsible for mixing live rounds into a batch of dummies. So there's that. So Alec Baldwin could be charged. We'll have to see how that pans out. But this is confirmation that was previously confirmed anyway. So I am kind of confused why they're even doing another test, because the FBI concluded exactly the same thing. But anyway, never mind. Alec Baldwin is trying to axe Rust crew member's suit over fatal shooting as criminal trial pushed to 2024. This is Hannah Gutierrez-Reed, the armourer, a stand-up professional. I'm sure you would agree. Obviously not. I mean, Jesus, look at it. I mean, the hair colour alone, hardly professional. And if you looked at any of her social media, she romanticizes weaponry and things like that. Very little respect for weapons. But anyway, let's have a look at this. So, special prosecutors have not decided whether criminal charges will be refiled against Alec Baldwin in the shooting of Rust cinematographer Helena Hutchins. But, and that's what I've just covered, that's why I wanted to cover that first, but the actor this week is trying to stop crew members taking him to court. So, meanwhile, Hannah Gutierrez-Reed has seen her criminal trial kicked down the road to next year, so that's no longer happening now. But here's the interesting thing. So, attorneys for Baldwin and El Dorado Pictures have filed a motion to dismiss the civil case brought in February by Rust crew members Ross Adiego, Doran Curtin and Reese Price, who accused Baldwin and the producers of negligent and reckless conduct. Hedging their bets, the defendants also have a motion pending to stay the whole matter until the Rust criminal trial is done and determined. New Mexico's first judicial district court has a hearing set for Wednesday on those motions, with the outcome potentially creating a significant blast radius for not just a criminal case, which Baldwin was obviously dropped from, but for also various other ongoing civil cases against Baldwin, because he's been sued out the bumhole, basically. So Baldwin has long insisted he never pulled the trigger, even though that's confirmed now that he did by forensics. Hannah Gutierrez-Reed is looking at a maximum of 18 months behind bars and about $5,000 in fines if found guilty. Not exactly a lot. So in that sense, Baldwin was partially vindicated when newly appointed special prosecutors Carrie Morrissey and Jason Lewis dismissed involuntary manslaughter claims against the actor this spring because of the concerns about the state of the firearm in question and potential modifications that may have occurred, while Morrissey and Lewis have proceeded with their investigation of Gutierrez-Reed, who has pleaded not guilty. The duo made sure to leave the door open to pull Baldwin back into the criminal case if evidence warranted it, which it now could be the case. And this is what was stated before. So although Alec Baldwin repeatedly denies pulling the trigger, given the test findings observations reported here, the trigger had to be pulled. So, I mean, this is the update, basically. This is the update itself. It's interesting. It is interesting. The case against Gutierrez-Reed. No comment on that. That was when the latest date was changed. So it's rescheduled Monday from the end of this year to February 21st, 2024. So that's pushed quite far down the road. I would hate to be her, knowing that your life's going to be pulled away from you. It's awful. But obviously, if justice needs to be served in that way, then it needs to be served in that way. So it's going to be almost a year, apparently, after a resurrected Rust production began filming in Montana with producer Baldwin in front of the cameras as retired gunslinger Harland Rust and Sousa directing. Completing production a few weeks later, Rust 2.0 saw widower and entertainment lawyer Matthew Hutchins join as an executive producer on both the feature film and documentary about his wife. The EP role was part of Hutchins' October 2022 legal settlement with Rust producers after he'd filed a wrongful death suit earlier this year. Essentially, the deal that he has struck now is to get money on the back end of it, whereas he couldn't. It's guaranteed money, whereas the wrongful death suit was not guaranteed money. So I actually don't blame him for that. But Alec Baldwin, goodness me, just trying to bin off everyone's bloody suits against him and things like that. It'd be interesting to see. It'll be really interesting to see what happens. Just to see. This has been going on for way too long. Way too long. Jesus, look at the state of her. Honestly, well, look at the state of them both. Like, for goodness sake. Have some decorum. Seriously. He says we're in a slight oil stain on her shirt. I've been working on a car, god damn it. Anyway, what a joke. What a shame. But yeah, the trigger was pulled. Confirmed twice now. So if he doesn't get pulled into court, I'm going to be very surprised. Because it's confirmed twice now that he's been lying. Twice. Anyway, let me know what you think down below. Cheers, guys. Take care. Bye-bye now.